So what should we make of the promise by Sudan's military ruler to hand over power to a civilian government? Well, General Fattah al-Burhan is the man who led last October's military coup in the East African country, a country that's been struggling to establish a new form of popular rule since the overthrow of its longtime authoritarian leader Omar al-Bashir in 2019. The October coup cut short the power-sharing agreement with the civilian authorities, and it ushered in a period of violent unrest, which saw waves of frustrated protesters taking to the streets and hundreds of people lose their lives. Well, today, Sudan's main civilian bloc, the Forces for Change, urged more protests and rejected the general's proposal. Well, General Burhan himself has been in neighboring Kenya today, attending a regional leaders meeting in Nairobi, from where Arise East Africa correspondent Mark Bichachi joins me now. Good to see you, Mark. First of all, what's the background to General Burhan making this promise to hand over to civilians? I understand it came as a surprise and caught many of the protesters unawares.
And he did actually catch the FFC unaware as well, because they've called an emergency meeting to figure out how they're going to respond to this. But to be honest with you, from the beginning, Burhan has tried to put a civilian face to his coup, beginning with the reappointment of Hamdok, the former prime minister who resigned in January. He then was replaced by another prime minister, and the promise has always been that the military will give way to democratic elections in 2023. However, the reason why this is a bit surprising is because the people remained demonstrating in almost unsatisfied from any promise that the military has given. And therefore, even this particular promise for him to allow for civilian rule without, he's not given a timeline, I don't think we'll be able to quell the demonstrators, because demonstrators seem to be clear that they want him out, and they want him out now.
So, I mean, is this being seen as a worthy concession following what has been a very difficult period for Sudan? Or is there general wariness and caution, especially considering that the general has made similar promises in the past which were never fulfilled?
Well, yes, indeed. This is a step in the right direction for sure. I think anybody analyzing this situation would not assume that fact. But will it be enough to satiate the demonstrators? I doubt it. And the reason why I doubt it is the trust level that Burhan enjoys in Sudan is quite low. People consider his rule legitimate. They consider him as an interested party, given that a lot of the demonstrators are also talking about the economy and how he has interest in the economy. And so I do not think this is going to stop the demonstrators. I think the demonstrators will only stop the day Burhan steps out of office, in as much as he has said that he will, the military will sequester itself to issues of peace and security.
And General Burhan has been in Kenya today, the country where you are, attending a meeting of regional leaders. Would you say that the timing of his statement is important, sending it as a signal to regional leaders, especially considering the international pressure that he's been facing to hand over to a civilian government?
Well, it is quite significant because, number one, this is an IGAD meeting. IGAD is an organization that Sudan is part of. IGAD was also part of the organizations that were organizing the talks between the military and various political players within Sudan. So IGAD is significant in this perspective, and of course, members of IGAD are also members of the African Union. So the timing is quite clear that he's sending a signal that he's willing to be more flexible. And also, let's remember that he said that he's also willing to remove himself from the talks and have the talks be between civilians. So this is the strongest indicator yet that Burhan is quite willing to talk to and to allow for democratic processes to happen within the Sudan and to return to civilian rule, which is what the people of Sudan want.
And as you mentioned, we know he's under pressure from the international community and clearly from protesters on the streets. But is he also under pressure from the Sudanese military?
Well, the pressure is, you're right, is coming from the streets, it's coming from the international community. We know Sudan has faced a lot of sanctions. It is also coming from within the military. From that perspective, we know there are people in the military who supported the process that was there before, the process of ensuring that there was transition through the governing council. So there are camps in the military. They're not as loud. They're not coming out in loud voices to say it, but he is definitely under pressure, given that the demonstrations, as you can imagine, are putting a toll on relations between the military and the people. And also, the military has not forgotten what happened just a few years ago when the former dictator was removed. And then let's also not forget that Sudan's military has had to deal with conflict in Darfur. It recently incorporated some members of the Janjaweed militia. So it is a military that is not in and of itself standing on solid ground. So such pressure on it would definitely put pressure also on the general.
And we've got less than a minute left. Of course, even though he's made that statement, I mean, it remains very vague, doesn't it? He did not give a timeline for when this handover might take place or when a transitional government might be in place.
No, absolutely, he did not. And that's really, I think, the red flag in this particular issue. And let's remember, it is not essentially a new promise, because he's promised to return to civilian rule from the beginning, from the time he took over. In fact, the reason why he took over was to say that he wants to return Sudan to democratic roots and back to civilian rule, something that he has not done, and 2023 seems far away for the demonstrators.
Right.
And let's not forget that they do not trust him at all.
Mark, thanks very much indeed. Mark Bichachi is a Rise East Africa correspondent, and he was talking to me there from Nairobi.